Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to your Partner in Success Radio. This is where top performers share their secrets to help you achieve your personal and your professional goals. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and together with my amazing guests, we bring you inspiring and actionable insights, and they're aimed to take your life and your business to the next level. Ranked in the top 2% globally, this podcast really is a must listen. So whether you're tuning in for entrepreneurial tips, career advice, or personal development strategies, get ready to turn inspiration into action, challenges into triumphs, and dreams into reality. And on today's show, we are diving into decoding the consumer dilemma, or in other words, navigating the marketing landscape, with my guest, John Lenker and Kevin deLaplante. I hope I said that right. I was practicing. I hope I said it right. And they are two visionaries who embody the belief that great ideas are humanity's most powerful resource. Now, John Lenker is the founder and chief vision officer at Lenker, and he's known for his creative prowess in brand strategy. And Kevin is the partner and chief knowledge officer, and he is a former academic philosopher, bringing analytical rigor to strategic engagements. We're going to talk about those engagements. And together they lead brand strategy and innovative initiatives with a shared commitment to meaningful connections. Welcome to your Partner in Success Radio, John and Kevin. It's good to have you here. And did I mangle your names? If I did, I'll smack myself.
You were brilliant. Thank you for having us on the show.
That was perfect, Denise. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I practiced. I really did. So listen, gentlemen, it's good to have you here. And I need to tell the audience, this is just part one of 2 episodes. We're going to be recording again in just a few days, because when I did the pre-interview, probably a couple of months ago now, I remember saying to John, this is a big topic. It's a very big topic, and I don't think an hour is going to do it justice. So they're here today. We'll cover as much as we can today, and then we're going to come back on Friday. So mark your calendars. So, gentlemen, before I get, really up and running and asking you questions, can you share a bit about yourself and the wonderful ways that you navigate through the world?
Well, I'm the founder of Lenker. We are a firm focused on growth consulting and offering marketing services. People, they hear that and they think, are you like an ad agency? Or I've heard of a marketing firm. What makes you different? What makes us different is, we're more like a management consulting firm meets a marketing firm. So we're focused not just on, getting marketing projects done for our clients, but really understanding their overarching business goals and helping them set realistic goals that make sense, and coming up with, the growth strategy that's going to help them achieve those goals. So we come up with game plans for them to pursue, and then we go along with them on the journey to help them get to their goals. So it's a very much a partnership, the way that we approach it. We're committed to the outcome. We're committed to your success. So it makes sense that we're on your Partner in Success Radio today. Thank
you. We talked a lot, and Kevin, can you jump in and share a bit about you as well?
Sure. Well, I'm chief knowledge officer with Lenker, and so part of my job is helping the organization gather knowledge and use knowledge in all its various forms. But I came to Lenker not because I was interested in marketing, but I came because I was interested in applying knowledge that I had learned over time to actually make people's lives better. And so when you're a teacher, say, and you're in that teaching role for many years, it can feel like maybe you're just sort of kind of spinning the wheels, right? And there's ideas lurking here that could really change people's lives if they were out there. And so I knew that I couldn't really have that kind of impact staying behind a classroom podium. So partnering up with John was a way of sort of combining a lot of our strengths in a way so that we could make impact And I was, as you mentioned in your intro, we really believe that a really great idea is an extraordinarily powerful thing, but really great ideas need champions. They don't manifest themselves, right? So we think of ourselves as helping to turn really great ideas into reality to have real impact, and that's the way that I think about the business that we're actually in.
And
And
I'm realizing, I'm sorry, I'm realizing listening to Kevin that I didn't do a good job of answering your actual question, which is, tell us a little bit about yourself. But listening to what Kevin just said, I would say that, I'm a person who, in the 30 plus years I've been pursuing, this business and this career, I've been deeply interested in bringing something more substantial and real to the marketing industry. It's an industry that has a bad reputation. A lot of people think that the things that happen in our industry are largely propaganda, and marketers just say whatever they have to say to get what they want. And I I have a deep commitment to bringing ethics to marketing and to helping businesses actually position themselves in the marketplace in a way that makes them a market leader genuinely and truly. And that the communications about that, the promotion of that, is really just kind of turning the lights onto the truth in the marketplace. And you think about that dimmer switch you have in your dining room, the more you kind of slide it up, the lights come on. And in the same way, we want to connect with clients that have something really genuine and substantive that they're doing, and promoting, their platforms or their products or their services. It is really a matter of just gradually turning the lights onto the truth. And we call that persuasive education. And we want to be persuasive as we educate people about the realities. And the reason that originally Kevin and I got hooked up is because in my pursuit of, developing myself along those lines, and being more capable of delivering on those ideals, I'd listen to different kind of podcasts. And Kevin had a leading podcast on critical thinking and argumentation, and I was a fan. And so I originally reached out as a supporter. I was a Patreon supporter of Kevin's, and over time, one thing led to another, and we were able to pursue some opportunities together. And it went so well that eventually I asked him to come in and be a partner here at Lenker. But I guess that's the thing that kind of unites us, is that we're deeply committed to bringing reality to our messages. And in Kevin's story, it was, I was teaching about things that I wanted to see how they worked in the real world. And on my side, we were doing things in the real world that we wanted to be, bring to a place that was progressively more principled. And I thought, wow, here's somebody with actual background and a PhD in these ideas. I'm someone with a lot of real world experience in advertising and e-learning and all these kinds of things. And maybe together we can get closer to that goal and that mark of doing the most excellent job of bringing things to market via our clients that are undeniably excellent. We say that we want our clients to become the undeniable solution in the market, and the brands that our audiences come to know, trust, and love. Know, trust, and love because the more they know them, the more they see it's true, it's real. And I think at the heart of it, and we talked about this a little bit in our pre-interview, is it's getting kind of old. A lot of these buzzwords, there's always some set of buzzwords going around in business. And right now, the ones that to me are getting the most tired out are words like authenticity and transparency. And, we're going to be authentic and we're going to be transparent. But, unless you're putting into practice principles that kind of surround those ideas, it just becomes another set of empty promises. And, we're kind of out on a mission, Kevin and I, and the team, our other partners at Lenker and our team, to really change that dynamic, to turn things around and do things that are true and real, in a way that can be verified and measured and reported on and learned from and iterated on and enhanced and improved. And, one of the reasons we do podcasts like this is because it's a great way for people out there in the world, in the business world, to get exposure to how we really think. We're not following a script in these interviews. We're speaking from our heart. We're speaking from our experiences. And, there's an old saying, deep calls unto deep. And I guess we hope that through these kinds of interviews, people can go, you know what? I'm looking for people with those kinds of values to help me grow my business and reach my highest goal. So that's a little bit about me. To complement what Kevin said about him, it's a little bit more about what we are at Lenker, and that, the last thing in the world we want to be is a company that has a bunch of, empty statements about genuineness and authenticity and helping our clients become market leaders in a way that's completely disconnected from reality.
And this is exactly why I wanted you to come in for 2 episodes, what you just explained. Because when we spoke during our first pre-interview, we wound up do my boo-boo. We had to do a second one. And thank you guys for being so patient. But the more I listened to you, I was like, we can't do this in an hour. We just cannot. It's too important. And we're talking about fake authenticity. I'll be honest with you, when I see somebody, hand over heart, I'm authentic and I'm blah, 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 I leave. I can't. My spidey sense goes up, my critical thinking goes into play, and I leave.
Right. We're what that reminds me of when you may say that your spidey sense is that human beings really are very good detectors of a genuine authenticity versus, fake or sort of misaligned. And of course we can be fooled. People do it all the time. You fool other people, but in general, human beings, we're the kind of creature that we're a social creature. We survive and we achieve what we have because we work in groups together. We can build cities together. We do technology together. We have culture. It's a unique species. And one of the things we have to learn how to do is navigate the social environment that we've built. I mean, it's the reason why it takes like 25 years for our brains to mature, because you need all that time to internalize the social rules of our lives. And things like, how am I supposed to relate to and deal with family and loved ones? How am I supposed to relate to and deal with strangers or work colleagues? The rules are endless. And we learn them, we get socialized into them. So we do have normal functioning brains really have good detectors to the point where you can be on the phone with your partner, for example, and just with the way they say hello can set you can know they're upset.
They're having a bad day.
They're having a bad day.
Right.
That level of awareness is something that we bring to, now what's interesting is that in business, when you're trying to make judgments about whether to trust another business, then I think the challenge is feeling like, I don't know, how do I bring that natural sensitivity that human beings have one-on-one to bear on making judgments about relationships between business entities? Like, it seems so far, so foreign. Like, how can I tell, right? And
I have to interrupt.
that's a trick.
I have to interrupt because I have a question and I'll forget. When we're looking at, partnering with a business or promoting a business, I always go look at the founder. Always. Is that smart, or am I wasting my time?
I would say with a business that still has a founder around, a business with the founder at the wheel. But there's a lot of legacy businesses where the founder is gone. And what happens after founders depart is that they're run by management teams. And the founder's personality and psychology may no longer be animating that company anymore. It's the same name, the same brand, but it's a different entity.
We actually just
You're
did
right.
we just did a project for a company that was founded in the 70s, I think it was, that the founder had long since gone away, and the company was still named after them. And over time, progressively, their value proposition not only eroded in the minds of the people in the marketplace, but it really had eroded within the minds of the people within the organization. They were having a little bit of an identity crisis, and so therefore, the ball didn't move forward very much. And because of some exposure that one of the senior directors had to us through some other engagements that they were aware of, they asked us in, and they entrusted to us the process of helping them, morph into relevance again, at least in terms of how they state their value proposition. I mean, because of course they were still relevant, but they didn't know how to talk about that so much. And we just had a very successful engagement with this organization, in helping them transition into the 21st century and to find that identity and to find the roots and the values that still resonated and still could be carried forward, but to kind of synthesize it with the experiences and the awareness of the current culture and the business environment, in order to create something that really resonated and had that ring of truth, but that was also married deeply to the substance of what they are and the value they actually are delivering and have continued to deliver over the years. And the feedback that we got as a result of this, and this is something that took like a year and a half to do, was just tremendously positive. The feedback, and not just putting a new kind of makeover on something that didn't have any kind of relevance to the past, but something that was genuinely an outgrowth of what had been, but that was meaningful and could be present in the minds of the various audience members and their constituents today. So what Kevin just talked about and what you just mentioned, is very much a thing. There's a lot of people that kind of go through that succession planning that fail to think about identity as a part of that succession planning. They think just about who's going to have the equity in the business, but nobody really thinks too much about who's going to be the vision holder after this transition.
Oh. And see, I realized after Kevin started explaining that I shouldn't have said founder, although I do still go look at them because I love history. I want to know who started this company, but I would have been better served by saying I want to know who the current CEO is and what his culture is all about. Because if it's Disney or some of these other companies that have gone completely woke, in my opinion, I want nothing to do with them. And I don't think I'm alone. I think a lot of us are going, you're not who you used to be. I don't know if I can hang with you.
Well, the point, yeah, I think another way of saying what you're saying is that you kind of want to know who you're getting into business with.
Right.
And different people have different perspectives on different issues. But there needs to be an alignment. One of the things that we focus on in our practice is something we call brand strategy alignment, right? Once you've come up with a really smart game plan from a strategic planning standpoint for your business, something that we help develop for our clients, how do you then project that into your branding in a way that makes a real authentic connection between what you're actually setting out to do and the message that you're putting out there, so that people don't show up and get something completely unexpected, or they become very disappointed. So I think know your audience is a tried and true saying. Know your audience, and then prepare something that is going to resonate. The example you just gave, you're one of the constituents of a major brand, and what you basically just said is, what, I used to like what they cooked up. I liked the taste of it. And, what they're serving now, they've changed the menu, and I don't want to consume that anymore. And, that's a valid point of view. maybe there are people who didn't like what they offered before who like it now. And they're catering to that audience. But I think thinking through all of this is super important. And that's something that we think doesn't get enough time is the thinking through it part. And really what we do in our practice is it's almost like corporate therapy. We help resolve a lot of these tensions and bring a reality check. What is, through, really comprehensive market opportunity analysis, or examining and validating the market opportunity analysis that you've done as a client. We provide insights and opinions about what we think the results of that are going to be. What is that going to lead to? You do ABC, what's going to happen as a result? And a lot of times the theories and maybe the wishful thinking around how a business is planning to move forward in the world, a lot of times it misses the mark. It's not just about hitting the targets in business, right? It's also about picking the right targets to aim for. You can hit the target all day long, but if it's the wrong target to have aimed for, you're still going to end up in a bad situation. So
I'm glad you brought up market opportunity analysis. We had spoken about that, and we also spoke a bit about oversaturated markets. How do people determine if they're oversaturated and it may not be the best place to go just yet?
Well, it could be that most markets that are interesting are going to be saturated. If you're in an interesting field, like cars or something cool, fitness or whatever, it's going to attract attention. And so almost all those markets are by default, they're kind of saturated. You've got lots of players in those markets. And so the challenge then is to figure out a way to figure out what your unique value proposition is. Like, what is the thing that you bring to the table that is going to be different? And if you don't have something new to the table, you should not be trying to compete in that market. That's the fact. You start with the reality check of like, do I have something new to offer? And when you do decide that, you figure that out, then the question is, how do I make it so that the market sees that and can tell the difference between me and everybody else? That's, of course, the fundamental challenge of branding in some ways. And I love that challenge because it's kind of the art and science of branding, actually, is to create differentiation between you and the pack. So you decluster yourself. And the trick here is that you want to not be so far out, so different that you confuse people. Like, you can have, here's a move, you say, I'm going to be so radically different. I'm going to be hovering outside the cluster so far. It's like Pluto way out there, right? And the problem is, if the response of your audience is, I don't know what you are, I'm confused by you, then you've failed at the job. If you get in closer to the inner planets of the solar system, right? There's a familiarity there. The market understands what the norms are. What you want to avoid is getting lost in the cluster of those inner planets that all look the same. You've got to be outside that region where you borrow on the familiarity of that cluster, and then you differentiate yourself enough. And right. So it's that balance of safety and novelty. Safety means I know what you are. I think I can trust you. I think I'm attracted to you. And then novelty is, but you are different from everybody else.
Got it. You're making me think of a commercial that I saw many, many years ago, and I'm in Cajun country. And that's important to know because this was a tire commercial. I feel the same way about toilet paper. Why do they need so many commercials? I don't watch TV, but really, we all know what it is. But this man sold tires, nothing but tires. Very large Cajun man. I'm sure he's long gone by now. He wore a bright red blazer, and he would stand in front of these stacks of tires and say, look, I know tires ain't pretty, but you got to have them. And that was the gist of his commercial. Look, this is probably 20 years ago. I still remember him standing in front of those tires. Tires ain't pretty, but you got to have them. Well, yeah. So who are you going to go
Okay.
to? The guy on the red jacket.
Well, the fact that you're telling that story now on this podcast years after having seen that means that that bit of branding did the job. It was
It
memorable.
did.
It's stuck in
So,
your head.
And he
so,
pointed out the obvious. It was
Yeah.
brilliant.
let's look at that for a second. Let's just take that as an example. Okay, so you've got this person, and they stood out to you. Now, let's just say that they did really well. There's something endearing about that person, the personality, maybe the red sport coat was kind of a signature. The Southern drawl. Yeah, this person obviously realized, they're in a commodity market, which means you have to do a lot of volume to be in that business. So you have to attract a lot of people to do a lot of transactions at very low margins to succeed. And maybe like a Costco, it's more of a top line revenue model than a bottom line revenue model. But let's just say super successful, right? So successful that the other competitors in the marketplace are thinking, gosh, this guy is stealing market share. We need to get our own version of that, right? So they put out commercials that try to in some way replicate it, right? Another person, maybe it's a little different. It's a woman instead of a man. It's a purple blazer instead of a red one. And they start to kind of copy, they want to ride that wave. Well, this is actually something that happens all the time. And it goes right back to the centerpiece of our conversation at the beginning, sort of fake authenticity. I'll give you an example. Throughout the early 2000s and into the teens, there was kind of a big movement around Brooklyn hipster sensibilities. Okay. A way of dressing, craft beer, guys with weird fedoras and, Amish person beards, but they lived in Brooklyn and they were, super, super into these detailed, crafty things about whether it's beer or food or, the, pillowcases that they make or whatever it is. And it started getting a lot of traction. And people wanted stuff that felt like it came from that kind of arena. And, it worked for a long time, but something started to happen. The first thing that started to happen is that some of the more successful businesses like that started to get bought by private equity firms. So they gave really big exits to some of these people who have been successful. They took it over, corporatized it, and now it's not these people running it anymore. Maybe they're still kind of on the TV commercial, but the sensibilities around it have completely been erased. And then other competitors start to offer their similar product. And think about something like a breakfast cereal. You go down the breakfast cereal aisle and you see this it looks like it was made in Brooklyn by a couple guys with long beards and fedoras, right? And then you flip the box over and look at it, and it's like made by XYZ big conglomerate company, the same ones that, have been making cereal for 30 years now. So the packaging looks like it's got that authentic Brooklyn kind of craft aura, but in reality, it's completely disconnected from that. People are just trying to use that to kind of pull the wool over the eyes of the people who want to plug into those set of sensibilities. So that's kind of the enemy of what we're talking about. The people trying to do something genuine and real, but then quickly it becomes a trend. And there's actually a framework around this idea. And it's the product innovation curve or the service innovation curve, right? There's something that's innovative and new. It gets introduced. There's some early adopters and people who really get into it. There's people who start to kind of follow, and sort of the word is spreading and more people are coming forward. And there's kind of an early majority of people that kind of get you to the top of that bell curve. And then there's a late majority, but by the time those people start going along with it, it's starting, the market's really getting saturated. People are following, margins are going down, more and more people are trying to copy. Again, it becomes more of a commodity. The wrong time to get into an industry. If you think of it like a wave and you're a surfer, it's the wrong time to try to catch the wave. Is when the wave is fully developed, it's going to crash down on you, You want to catch it at the right time. When clients come to us, we ask 3 questions in kind of the initial qualification process. Why this? Why now? And why you? Why are you choosing to do this in the world of business and introduce this into the marketplace? Why is now the right time to be doing it? Why are you catching the wave at the right time? And why you? Why are you qualified to be the one to become the market leader and to exploit this market opportunity and to kind of lead? And if you don't have really good answers to those questions, it's probably not something that should be pursued. That's part of what makes us different, is we'll give you that advice. We've turned away clients and told them you'd be best served to not pursue what you're talking about doing, because you're going to lose all of your equity if you try to do that. So, I've tried to give a real world example of how kind of this fake authenticity actually happens. People trying to project an image that has nothing to do with the reality of who they are, nothing to do with their value proposition. And this is part of what you talk about a saturated market, what comes with that? Everybody's putting out their message, just exponentially more messages saying the same kinds of things. And it becomes so overwhelming. It's where we get ideas like information overload and information pollution. If you think about what is information pollution, it's, if you're in the desert and you're starving and you're thirsty and there's nothing, and you see a sign finally that says fresh water here and hot lunch. Oh my gosh, I've been waiting for that. It's the one thing you wanted to hear. But, you think of a place like Las Vegas, right out in the desert, and maybe they had one casino one time. It was like really cool. But then when you get everybody is doing it and all the signs are flashing, all these things, it becomes overload. It becomes commonplace. It becomes mundane. And actually in that kind of situation, what do you do if you're trying to compete? What is the market opportunity you should pursue? And what we propose is that in times like this, it's time, whether you're a new business or an established business that's maybe, your sales are in decline, your margins are shrinking, you're having to work twice as hard this year as you did before to get even, smaller profit. It's times like these to take a step back and do an assessment, to do an evaluation. What is at the core of your skills and competencies that could be crafted into something that's worth pursuing and that could really add value in the marketplace and that would set you head and shoulders above your competition? The question we ask is this: what is it that you could do that, if you did it, would help you become the undeniable solution in the market? Right? And there's sort of this continuum of doing something remarkable that helps you become something substantial, that lets you have and attain the goals that you're trying to achieve. You reach your goal. You have that success because you did the things that led to you becoming something real, that helped you attain and have and hold on to a position in the marketplaces that's worth having. So here I went off on another, major sermon, but that's at the core of what we think about every day here at Lenker.
That makes sense. And I've interviewed several people who, out of COVID, did exactly what you're talking about. They stood back, they watched, they listened, they didn't make knee-jerk decisions. And some of those knee-jerk decisions were to just disappear and not get in touch with the people they needed to be in touch with. Those businesses are now gone, but they upskilled themselves dramatically. And I think that's what you're talking about.
One of the
go ahead, Jeff.
One of the distinctions that we draw in our business is the business strategies that are value based. Where the goal of business is to create value in the market, unique value. But there are these other business models that are not value based at all, and there are still opportunities to make money at them, like copycat businesses, where you ride a trend and the whole strategy is to you see what's trending. You've got, for example, John's example, and then you find a way of wrapping that brand energy around a product or service, and you put it on the market, and you get quick gains because you get to, but it's only a short-term thing. You have to then, it's going to fall off. It's not sustainable. You have to move on to another thing. It's like the market for DVDs, for videos. When you have a major movie like Frozen, and you have all these copycat films that are made that look and sound like the same cover as the Frozen DVD, so that you can copy it and you get some people to buy those, sort of thinking they're going to get the same experience, right? Those are those in fact suck value out of the market. They're kind of a parasitic uh, business model, but that doesn't mean that they can't make people money. And as long as that's possible, then the market will sustain a certain volume of this kind of stuff. It's the way it's the way that the markets get noisy with products and services that really are kind of deceptive or kind of short term or whatever. They can fool you. Um, and there isn't a way to screen off that from happening, because you can always find people who are opportunistic and want to take advantage, but it's going to be short term. It's not a sustainable business. And in the end, for us, it's a hollow way to do business. It's hollow, it's shallow, and you're not really adding value to the world that way.
However, and I want to jump in here so that the audience doesn't think we're overly idealistic or that we have some kind of naive altruism that's not based on reality. The truth is, going back to sort of the, this Brooklyn craft, maybe there's just an amazing hamburger joint in Brooklyn that like everybody raves about, and these guys are awesome. But maybe they don't run their business very well. Maybe there's, the reviews are inconsistent. And maybe some competitor comes along and says, I love the quality of what those guys do when they do it right. But what they don't know how to do is operationalize what they have and scale it. And the competitor comes in to do, the knockoff, but it's not that they're trying to kind of sneak by something that's a lower standard, but maybe they've taken an idea that somebody else has had, that was an innovation in quality, or the characteristics were unique. But what they bring to the table is the ability to operationalize it and turn it into a scalable business. So they're in one sense they're copying what the guys in Brooklyn did in that craft hamburger joint, but they're able to franchise it and operationalize it, in a way that actually is bringing real value. They're not just trying to steal the idea and then do nothing other than kind of divert sales to them versus somebody else. They're actually building the market and creating the ability for a greater range of consumers to experience it, and maybe a greater range of places. I think, think of a place like Five Guys. We're talking about hamburgers. I think that started out in New York, and I think it was five brothers that just became very popular. But somebody came along with a way of franchising that and scaling it. And so, it isn't true that just because you are riding the tail of somebody else's innovation, it doesn't mean that you can't bring another dimension of innovation and create value. You can. So I just wanted to kind of add that part, so it didn't sound like we're, trying to start some cult here of, unless you have the original idea, you don't count, phooey on you. No. But the exercise that we need to go through is to really define what your value proposition is. What is it that you're adding that makes people, when they hear your story and your value proposition, they go, I'd have to be a fool to not say yes to them. I mean, what they are offering is so undeniable. And they've been so transparent. I've seen all the sides of this. They've persuasively educated me to the degree that I feel that I fully understand this and I want to get behind it. So, there's that.
Interesting. And I have to say, Kevin, when you were talking just a few minutes ago, I wrote down franchises, question mark, question mark. So apparently I was listening between the lines and didn't even know it. But Their franchises are everywhere, and they were just an idea. McDonald's, I guess, was maybe one of the first ones. I don't know, but
It was the first.
was it McDonald's? Okay.
Well, it was the first one that followed that kind of model of,
Yeah.
turning a really innovative approach to how to deliver. And actually, it's what I just said. They had this amazing ability to provide a volume of food of a particular kind that was repeatable every single time, so that more people could come through that store in a given day than the average hamburger stand. That was their real innovation that everybody has copied ever since.
Yeah, they knew it. The customers knew what they were getting. It wasn't going to be, a little bit raw one time or taste different than it was always the same thing all the time.
But the fact is that now Ray Kroc is long since gone, and McDonald's has become a major corporation, one of the biggest in the world. And the way they're making their money and the volume that they're doing isn't so much tied to quality anymore.
No,
And
don't
it's
you
created
dare.
room for companies like Five Guys, and they're here in the Twin Cities, which is where I'm based. Kevin's based in Canada. But around our region, there's a franchise called Culver's, and I will choose to eat at Culver's every time that I can, versus one of the more traditional franchises like McDonald's or Burger King, because they've learned the lessons that McDonald's and Burger King and those types of businesses had to teach about scaling something. There's a book called The E-Myth that talked a lot about how to do this.
I have
But
the book. It's in my bookcase. I'm looking at it.
but a company like Culver's has been able to come and say, we're gonna use all that scalability, all those principles, all those systems, but we're gonna bring the quality back.
Mm.
When you drive through the drive-through, here's what they say to you. And I can quote it exactly. They say, "What can I make for you fresh today? What can I make for you fresh today?" And then they make it fresh for you, that order to order. And the quality is, I mean, I just got to say it. This is not an ad for Culver's. They're not a client. It's as good as any cheeseburger I have ever had anywhere. That's how, and probably better. And so they've it's like, who in their right mind, and I think they really, I'm going to guess they started in the 90s, and they've really started to take off. Who in their right mind would franchise a hamburger uh, business so late in the game? I mean, what could they do? How it's a completely foolish idea if you're following one mindset. But because they had realized some things, they leveraged sort of the system and process thinking that was popularized through some of these franchise models. The E-Myth talks about it. Ray Kroc pioneered it. What could we add to that? How could we bring an X factor to that? And they did. And it's crazy successful. It's growing and thriving. And I don't know if they've long since been bought out and what's happening. I know almost nothing about the business other than I am a 100% satisfied customer every single time. And from a quality standpoint, they really deliver. So
John, your example there is it helps make a good point that there's a difference between market share and profitability. You might think, how can I be profitable if I can't gain market share on this cluster? No. You can have a highly profitable business in a very small market share, because you have a loyal segment that you've dialed in the size of your business to match that market niche, in a way that has a perfectly fine business, and it can be just a fraction of the total market share. That's entirely possible.
It is. And if anybody's wondering who wrote the E-Myth, it's Michael Gerber. Okay, so I've got questions, guys. What are some of the signs or the red flags that indicate somebody or something is just not authentically genuine. And I can give you some signs just off the top of my head. And I don't know if this is a new thing on social media, but it's an annoying thing. And, you can show up as fake almost immediately. Let's just use LinkedIn as an example. I've gotten to where on LinkedIn, I'm very cautious about accepting, new connections because all of a sudden, within minutes, they're saying, "What do you do for a living? Can we have coffee? Would you like to chat?" No. And I just block them. It's annoying. There's nothing
Hilarious.
about that. Yeah, I mean, I don't even bother to say, "No, thank you. I'd like coffee before you offer the ring." I just block them because I know they're following this fake path that some coach taught them. Whoever's doing this, stop it.
Well, this brings up a really important point, and actually we didn't mention this, but Kevin and I are working on a new book that kind of addresses this. The book is called The Follow Formula: Taking Command of the Customer Journey.
I have that
And
written down. You beat me to it. Okay, keep going.
well, we'll edit. Fundamentally, here's what's talking about, which is in real life, in our most important human connections that we have. There are protocols. Kevin talked about some of them earlier. There are things that happen in a relationship when it unfolds in a healthy and productive and natural way that are important components to how we build meaningful relationships. And where businesses go wrong is that they forget that their business is ultimately coming down to humans interacting. And when you try to strip away the important sociologically and psychologically based components that must be there for a healthy relationship to develop, when you try to strip that out and you end up doing things blindly, like ask for inappropriate things, asking for things at the wrong moment in a relationship, like, "Hey, can I connect with you on LinkedIn? And oh, by the way, here's what I want to sell you right now." Right? It's a very tricky thing. And I think all of us have maybe fallen into that to some degree or another. I can't say that I've been completely innocent of it in my professional career, but maybe a poignant example of a similar thing. I use this example sometimes is, a person walks into a car dealership and, it's a Saturday afternoon. They walk into a car dealership, maybe you're dressed nice. You look like you might be affluent in some way. And somebody immediately approaches you and says, "Hi, my name is John. Would you like to buy a new car today?" And and you're like, no, leave me alone. And by the way, that's super needy what you just did. And you just projected that what you're here for today is to make a commission off me. What can I get from you? You walked into my zone. You're here. What can I get? What can I get from you? None of us would do that in a real relationship where we wanted to make a good impression on people. "Hi, my name is John. What can I get from you? What can you give me?" But we do this in business. It's asinine. It's completely disconnected from what a human being is going to build trust. We say it again. We want you to become the undeniable solution in the market and the brand your audiences come to know, trust, and love. To know someone is to have a proximity relationship. It's you've allowed somebody to get close to you, and you've built trust, and you've come to develop some level of affection or affinity for that person. There's a way to do this in real life, in real relationships, and you cannot disconnect from that in pursuing business relationships. And I know it's really tempting with technology and CRMs and marketing automation to just kind of spam the universe and add to this information pollution and this information overload. It's tempting. I'm not saying that there aren't traps for all of us, but it's something that if you really want to become a market leader, it's going to have to be something that's much more authentic and real and genuine. It has to be born from something real.
It does. And, as you guys know, I'm a podcaster, and LinkedIn, honestly, I hate to even go in there anymore. I'm getting daily, "Please accept me, blah, blah, blah." They immediately want to handle my podcast. They want to edit my podcast. They want to be my person. I'm my person. I'm my team. And they don't know that, but they should already know something. They should say, "Hey, Denise, love your podcast. Give me an example of which one." One of the best things that did happen to me in this particular arena was I got a little video from somebody who has now became a podcast guest, and we do business together, meaning that we refer people back and forth. And she sent me the most lovely little video, said, "Hey, Denise, I love your podcast. This is why I love it, blah, 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 blah. And I would be honored to be on your podcast." Well, yeah, you bet. I went and I looked at her. I looked at the work she's doing. That was an instant invite. But hey, by the way, I'm so and so, I'm from Pakistan and I can do all of this, blah, blah, blah. Let's jump on a call. That's not just a no, guys. That's a hell no. I get kind of
Well,
cranky about these things.
no, but I just want to say that it's not that there isn't real value. I mean, we work with a number of offshore individuals who are just fabulous and do an amazing job, from different countries, and there's in the modern business economy, there's a role
There is.
for
Some of my team members are from, other countries. They're terrific.
but it's
They
about
didn't try to do this with me, like, bah, 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 hire me. No.
So let's talk about communication strategy now for a
Yeah.
second. Okay, so that's what not to do, what to do. My original book that I wrote about online communications philosophy, called Trade of Thoughts: Designing the Effective Web Experience, talked about this framework: we attract, inform, and invoke. And what can you do to attract attention, right? What can you do to convert that attention into sales, convert prospects into customers? Again, bringing it to the human level. You go to a cocktail party or something, and we all know when people who walk in the room and they just they're talking, they're annoying people, they're attention getters. They're attention getters, right? We don't like attention getters. Contrast that to somebody who walks into the room that just is a magnet for attention, because there's something about them that just draws people in, whether it's their looks or their personality or the way they carry themselves or whatever. There's a difference between somebody who just naturally attracts people and somebody who tries to get attention. And unfortunately, we're living in an information economy where the vast majority of people are just trying to get attention, get attention, get attention. And what do the rest of us do? They do what you do. They put their arms up. They're trying to block people from coming in. We call this the marketing paradox in our philosophy, that your job as a marketer is to attract attention, but the harder you push and the more you try, the stronger the barriers that go up and the higher they are to resist you coming in. And how do you kind of break into somebody's consciousness when they're trying to fight to keep you out? And you talked about one way somebody did something different. They sent you a video, but now that becomes trendy. Everybody's doing that. Now you're blocking that. What is it that can actually make the biggest difference? And what we propose is the most important thing you can do is to develop what is the undeniable solution in the market, that you generally are head and shoulders above your competition. You've crafted a business strategy and approach to the marketplace that when people get to understand it and they do let you in, it becomes clear to them that you really are the place that they should invest in, the one that they should say yes to. And that by developing a reputation, and gets into branding, and Kevin talks a lot about what goes into a brand, whether it's a personal brand or a business brand, but you develop that reputation as just being, where the action's at, and everybody starts through word of mouth, wanting to connect with you, and you get enough critical mass through that smaller networking approach that next layer of attention getting or the next layer of being magnetic to draw people in a greater kind of sphere of influence, it starts to kind of naturally cascade, right? This we call it trickle down influence. It's a cascading effect of influence that starts through interpersonal belief and start to spread through networks of influence into a greater mass market.
And I take a lot of notes while my guests are talking because I find y'all fascinating and I learn from you. I really do think that my guests are more often than not my mentors. And this is what I wrote down while you were talking. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was known as a brilliant conversationalist. He spoke very little. He listened. But everybody thought he was a brilliant conversationalist. So there's something to go along there. He completely authentic. He wasn't trying to blah, 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 shout above the crowd, make noise. He wanted to know what was important to you.
Well, there's somebody who had, zero market share at one point in his story,
That's
and
exactly right.
ended up having all the market share at another point in his story through, and I think this is maybe a little primer of what we might cover on the next episode. We talked about that fundamental question. What would you need to do that if you did it would help you become the undeniable solution in the market, right? And that you would have the market share that you want. This continuum, do, be, have, is something that I think we can maybe develop in the next time together a little bit, which was actually inspired by one of our pro bono clients who's got one of the largest youth development foundations in the Twin Cities, who's helped just literally tens of thousands of kids to who are at-risk youth to kind of reach their highest potential. Just a beloved person, and just kind of observing the impact that he has had in his organization and sort of the methods they follow. Kind of our hot take on it is it's do, be, have. You got a lot of kids who want a better life. I want to have this, I want to have that. How do you get to having those things? Well, you got to be the kind of person who has those things. Well, how do you be the person who has those things? You got to do the work. And this guy, Tony Sani, runs the Sani Foundation. Was a World Cup soccer player on the U.S. team, and sports is a really great arena to think about. The people who put the work in, they do the work, they practice the fundamentals to build the skills and become the kind of players that have the success that they want to have, and then all the rewards that go with it. It's easy to kind of see how that happens. Not everybody's got the same kind of God-given talent that can be developed into a world-class level. But there's certainly something you can pursue that can offer unique value proposition, whether you're an individual or a business. And I think that there's a lot to really kind of suss out and think through when it comes to that continuum, do, be, have. And maybe we can touch on some of that now, but I think it's a lot to kind of explore, and we could talk about that in our next conversation as well.
Definitely. So I wanted to ask both of you, what are some of the current trends or developments in your field? Because it's moving fast. I know it is. And how are they impacting your work or your industry? What, I guess, sea changes are you seeing, if any?
Well, I can start with that. My area of strongest interest is the role of branding in business development and growth. And there's a growing realization across multiple business categories that brand equity is a real thing, and that people have to have to worry about investing in their brand identity and growing that, and they're not used to that. If you come from a stricter marketing and sales background, then branding work can seem different and strange to you. I find that that one of the most powerful levers, and it bears on the questions that we've been talking about, is that one of the things you do with branding is you try to identify who your brand personality is. You imagine yourself, your company, as a person. And if your company was a person, what would that person be like? What would be their characteristics if you had to build that person? And having that notion of a brand persona under your belt, when you couple that with the idea of the market audience as a kind of singular person, the target audience that you are talking to, you imagine that ideal a customer as a singular entity. And so now you pair up the brand persona as a person with the market audience as a person. Now, these are abstractions now. You've constructed them, but it does put us in the mind frame of one person talking to another person in human conversation, right? It is a heuristic. It's a lever that lets us tap into the genius that we carry around in our brains about human connection, about human imagining your business as a person, talking, relating to another person on that level means you will identify the mistakes that we've been talking about. You're just not going to do the things that would be socially so strange and you would never do in person, right? The problem is we think of business as such a different kind of activity than interpersonal communication that we don't see it that way. But this exercise of thinking from a brand perspective, from this brand persona perspective, really is, I think, a powerful tool for extracting the insight and wisdom that we already have and bringing it to bear to our business to improve the quality of the value that we're delivering to the market. I see that trend spreading, and I think it's a great trend.
It
One of
is.
one of the things that we really focus in on, and I think it might be, bring us full circle in this conversation, because we started talking about, what is genuine authenticity versus kind of this fake authenticity. And really what we say brand, what is a brand? Well, what we say is that a brand is what people believe about you, right? A brand is ultimately the space that you occupy in the minds of your audience members about what they really believe about you. And the question is, what is the distance or the delta between what you say you are and what you really are? Because people will find out. And when they find out, they're going to form an opinion about what they believe your value proposition really is. And in some people's mind, they could be, your value proposition is just a crock of rubbish. It's a bunch of baloney, is what your value proposition. That's what I believe. That's what your brand is to me. Versus, wow, I took the chance. I heard something about you. I looked into it. I've now experienced something about you. And to me, what I believe is this, and that you really have something worthwhile and worthy. That's one of the chapters in our upcoming book is the title of the chapter is Be Worthy. It's one of the things you got to be, right? So the brand, branding really isn't just, what's the story? What can we tell people? What can we make them believe to get what we want to get out of them? That's not what branding is. Branding is exploring the things about you as this persona that Kevin said, the qualities and characteristics about this kind of personified version of your business that is easily relatable and can make an easy connection with the persona of the different people in your various audiences. What is it that could be that could be genuine and valuable and real? And that really the work of marketing and communications really is just to kind of turn on the lights to the truth, gradually, progressively, step by step by step, in an appropriate unfolding of events. Not like the car salesman we discussed earlier that wants to jump from hello to, sign on the dotted line. But what is the natural flow path that people follow in any given relationship? What are the stages of the relationship that need to be kind of progressively moved through to build a healthy, natural, productive relationship? That's what our book's about, the follow formula. And what's the work that needs to be done in each stage of the relationship, and what's the milestone that you must reach to kind of graduate from one stage of the relationship to the next stage of the relationship. Once you kind of map this out and understand what is a good and productive natural progression in a relationship, in a business relationship, getting your audiences to say yes to your value proposition. Once you think that through and think about the audience and the stage of the relationship you're in, and the goal you're trying to get, that's a natural, appropriate goal to get to for the next stage of the relationship, now you can think about how to craft a message. Who you're talking to, the stage of the relationship you're in, you maybe know where and when you're interacting with them, and you know what the goal is, and it's a reasonable goal. Now you can come up with a communication strategy that will naturally unfold, will attract, inform, and invoke them to want to go to the next stage. And what you do when you follow this is that you ultimately maximize customer lifetime value. Not just the value of the customer to your business, but you learn how to maximize the value that your business offers to the customer.
Understood. And you just had me thinking of something else, because many times I think we don't know what our true persona is. I had to start actually listening to what people were saying to me and about me, instead of saying, oh, hey, thank you, and then going and building a website or just forgetting all about it. And I realized that there was a flow to the conversations that I was having with people and the comments that were coming back to me and going, oh, I didn't know that about me. I had no idea. So let's talk about that. When we're talking about our personas, and sometimes we have to ask other people. We don't see what's in front of ourselves, but we are out of time, gentlemen, and I hate it, but we're out of time. And I sincerely appreciate your company today, and I can't wait to the next conversation. So before I let you go, would you mind sharing your online presence and your preferred means of contact?
You want to learn more about Lenker? Go to lenker.com/Denise Griffitts.
Perfect. I like hearing my own name. Woo! Okay. And how about you, Kevin?
It's the same for both of us.
Okay.
It's the same. You can learn all about us if you go to that website.
Okay, great. Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much. We will be back in just a few days. And as we conclude today's episode, your feedback means a lot to me. If you found the show helpful, please support us with a quick review on iTunes. And this is why your input is vital in my mission to inspire and empower more individuals. So don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share your Partner in Success Radio with friends and colleagues. And be sure to go find these gentlemen, John Lenker and Kevin deLaplante, on the web and connect with them. And thank you for tuning in. Gentlemen, I will see you in a few days.
Thanks for having us, Denise.
Oh,
thank you very much. Thank you so much.
It's been very enjoyable.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.